And away we go. Alright then, same old, same old. Let's see what me or the lads in that podcast group chat we have sent about whatever goes on in today's world. Well, who knows what and who knows why. So, Risk 11, he sent a text message into the group chat. He replied with, "Show well do you think reform will do on May 7th? I think the Greens will underperform, Lib Dems will over-preform." Interesting choice of words there, Risk. I responded to Risk with just my brief analysis per party, well, per notable national party in the UK. Okay, it goes like this. So, what I responded to Risk with is, Reform will gain the most overall local seats, as usual. Like, if there's anything to learn from last year's local elections for across all the English councils, Reform delivered hard, but not hard enough. That's Restore's job. Restore's the one that's going to deliver harder on the right. At least that's what I know. Greens will gain a lot of councillors at the expense of Labour, but not enough to gain control of councils whose seats are up. Only take control away from councils that are run by said parties, or at least take control away from the parties that's currently running these councils, most of which are run by Labour, along with Reform. Yeah, Reform will also play a part in taking control away from parties that are currently running or have a majority in these local councils. Lib Dems will continue to win more councillors than initially expected, like previous years. However, there is a chance that their votes could be split off into other parties. Despite the Tories not achieving results they hoped to get since the last general election, they will somehow manage to hold on to some of their current seats, as well as gain a few seats off other parties. And they will. And between the last general election and up until now, there have been a couple of local by-elections where people think that the Tories are gone, they're over. However, there are a couple seats that the Tories managed to hold on to out of the seats they currently have, as well as winning seats from other parties, which is actually quite a surprise, actually. No, that's not to say that the Tories are back. No, I'm not. I'm not going to give the Tories too much credit or hype them up too much. That just comes to show that there aren't many people that's going to jump ship to vote for reform. There's going to be some hardcore Tory voters that will vote for the Conservatives, regardless of where the momentum is shifting towards. As inevitable Labour's decline is going forward, and it is, there are some wards in most councils that will still hold on to those seats. And again, they will still hold on to the seats they currently have amongst most of the councils which they have a majority in. Now, to say that Labour will hold on to a majority in the councils they hold a majority, they're going to lose it. Labour is going to lose a lot of their local council majorities this year. And I'm not just talking about the Greens or Reform being the contributors of what would lead to Labour's demise and losing those local council majorities. Again, Labour will still hold on to local council seats in specific wards, not just because those said seats that Labour has aren't even up for election this year, even out of the seats that are up for local elections that Labour does hold on to at the moment, somehow they will still hold on to some of them. Not all of them, at least some of them. The others will go back and forth, spread across other parties. That's my perspective. And finally, I'm hearing a lot about independent candidates, whether it be standing as someone whose values aligns with Restore Britain, your party, or ideas of someone or something entirely, something else entirely. And that's it. That's all I have to say. That's just my rough-ish analysis on my perspective on May the 7th UK local elections for English councils, and of course there's also devolved countrywide government elections for the Welsh Senate and the Scottish Holyrood parliamentary elections. What I think of that? What do I think of the two? I think Plaid Cymru is certainly going to win the most seats. They're not going to get a majority. They will have the most seats nonetheless. I believe that's most likely. I'm not rolling out Reform to be the party that gets the most seats. I believe that the support for Plaid Cymru in Wales will be certainly strong enough to the point they will be the party that has the most seats in the Welsh Senate. And depending on how much seats the Greens get in the Welsh Senate, will also determine if Plaid Cymru, the party that will certainly win the most seats in the Welsh Senate, will be able to form a majority coalition with just the Greens alone. If this number of Green seats isn't enough to make a majority in the Welsh Senate, then, well, I think Plaid Cymru will have to go with Labour to form the coalition. Who knows? Maybe people are downplaying the Greens a lot more than what people make them out to be. That's just me. Risk 11 responded saying, I think Lib Dems will hold more power than most think. I replied, I agree. And I do agree. For many years, even before the current UK political landscape that we have today, Lib Dems always overperform in local elections than what many people think. During the years when Labour and the Tories, being the two parties that always win enough seats to form their own majorities, or they would get the Lib Dems to fill in the gap that is even needed for a majority. Nowadays, we have more than 3 parties now serve as viable options to even form a government, whether it be at a national level or at a local level. So there's a lot more options now than there were a few years ago. Now, of course, there's a lot of political parties now, just as much as it were a few years ago. It's just now that there's more options amongst parties who have stronger voter bases to the point that the party in question could be the one that might play a role in a coalition government, local and or national level, to deliver on the promises in which those parties want to deliver to their local constituents. I've sent a screenshot. I'd assume this is from Instagram threads. The screenshot is a photo of an X-ray scan of a dog and a human hand, and there is text above that picture that reads, "Science has now confirmed it. Dogs can truly sense bad people. They smell stress and fear through hormones like cortisol, and they notice the smallest changes in voice, movement, or scent. Even if someone smells, a dog can feel hidden anger or bad intentions. That's why they growl at some strangers but instantly trust others. Their instincts never lie. They know who's good and who's bad." Wow, that's impressive. And people ask, why is a dog a man's best friend? And I'm not just going to say that this post screenshot I've just sent being the main reason. It is at least one of the stronger reasons why a dog is a man's best friend. A dog with their instincts can tell who is bad and who is good instantly. So, you know what? I think whenever I go out in public or actually go to someone's house and they have a dog, I'll try and interact with the dog and see how do they react when I try to pet them or play with them. And I'm not going to take their reactions too personally. Given how strong their instincts are, I believe it is a good indication of who I am as a person. And also, young children, especially toddlers, they also have good instincts about who is good and who is bad. And yeah, great for dogs. Not sure if they're bad for anything. That's just me. Dogs are great. Well, other than the amount of fur they shed and having to pick up their mess whenever we go out walking. But we'll deal with that later. Enjoy the moment, and will come handy one day, or maybe now. I was thinking of security purposes, like having a dog to secure your home. That could be useful, unless you don't train your dog to defend yourself or defend others within your home. Then, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm just saying, dogs are useful, as well as being a good companion. So yeah, that is all the stuff that's been sent in the group chat as of the last time I recorded a podcast episode. With that all being said, let's get right into the news. Solomon says new federal AI strategy will track impact on jobs. The federal government promised new federal AI strategies will consider the technology's impacts on the labor market. Artificial intelligence Minister Evan Solomon said on Monday. It's been 6 months since the government wrapped up fast-tracked consultations on the strategy. Solomon initially promised it would be tabled by the end of last year. He said last fall Canada couldn't afford to wait and had to move quickly. When he was asked Monday to explain the delay in introducing the strategy, Solomon said it would be released very soon, quote unquote. Solomon said the impact of AI has been changing, and he is still consulting on the strategy, citing recent meetings with labor leaders, environmentalists, and young people. Even when we did our consultations, the industry has changed dramatically. The impact of AI has changed, and we are consulting, he said. Solomon said the strategy will address AI's impact on labor. We are making sure that when we launch this strategy, there is an element that it will meet the changing needs of labor and all the stakeholder groups, he said. Last fall, the government appointed a task force to advise it on this new strategy. So critics said that group lead too much on the perspective of industry and the tech sector. It also held a public consultation that received more than 11,000 comments, which the government sorted through using AI. Shortly after he became Canada's AI minister, Solomon suggested Canada would move away from over-indexing on warnings and regulation to make sure the economy benefits from AI. So to say we're consulting on a strategy to tackle with AI, only to find out this so-called consultation used AI in regards to how AI will impact the labor market in Canada. I think that really seals the deal. If you're having to use AI to consult on whether it is good for AI to contribute in the Canadian labor market or how AI will impact on existing jobs in Canada, you just said the quiet part out loud. You just said the answer that everyone was looking you pretty much demonstrated was looking for and possibly expecting. So, you know what? At this point, why bother consulting? Because if you just use AI to consult on AI in Canadian labour markets, enough said. The consultation's over. We know what AI is going to be like in the labour market, and we know what its impact is. You just use AI to discuss and figure out what AI is going to do for jobs in Canada. I find this baffling and hilariously stupid, but it's also kind of funny. So funny, very funny. Yeah, forget the consultation. You just said the quiet part out loud. You just demonstrated the answer to everyone's questions about whatever this consultation is. I don't think anyone has to go any further. It's over. It's certainly over. No, this is just funny. That's just funny, man. Oh, so funny. Scientists discover scorpion's sting fortified with metal. Okay. On Tuesday, researchers published a study in the Journal of the Royal Society Interface, revealing that scorpions reinforce their stingers and pincers with metals like zinc, manganese, and iron to exchange durability. Using electron microscopy and X-ray analysis on 18 scorpion species from the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History. The team mapped metal distribution across these arachnids' anatomy to establish a new approach for analyzing arthropod evolution. Metals concentrate in areas under stress. Stingers feature zinc tips, followed by manganese layers, while pincers contain zinc and iron along cutting edges to bolster weapons used for subduing prey. Surprisingly, the team noted that slender, weaker-looking claws contain higher zinc concentrations than larger, crushing pincers, suggesting these metals provide vital wear resistance for species relying on speed and agility. This discovery helps biologists understand how arachnids adapt to survive for 450 million years, potentially offering a model to investigate whether similar metals enrichment exists in other arthropod weapons, like spider fangs. Huh. That's the first time I'm hearing about this. Using different metals to see how arachnids and arthropods enhance with their, well, not just their body parts, but also their ability to pinch and sting their prey and devour their opponents. That's a pretty good research. Britney Spears pleads guilty to reckless driving after arrest. Britney Spears pleaded guilty through her lawyer Monday to a lesser charge, allowing her to avoid jail time after authorities accused her of driving under the influence in Southern California. California Highway Patrol pulled her over for driving her black BMW erratically on US 101, where she appeared impaired and failed field sobriety tests before arrest. Her lawyer, Michael A. Goldstein, agreed to plead to what is commonly called a wet reckless, resulting in a year of probation, required DUI classes, and state-mandated fines. Prosecutors said the plea offer was standard for defendants with no DUI history, especially those showing motivation to address problems through voluntary treatment, which Spears pursued in April. Although Spears did not appear in Ventura County Court, the hearing drew an unusually heavy media turnout for the seaside city of about 110,000 people, roughly 113 kilometers northwest of Los Angeles. I'm not surprised about high media attention on Britney Spears. Like in general, not just the court case, just anything related to Britney Spears. The media's on it. They just are. Well, anyway, with that out of the way, in regards to the charge, which she has pleaded guilty for, now I'm not saying this is what's needed. And again, if you're going to do something, you got to prepare yourself to pay the prices for your action. And even if it's obvious that there is treatment that's needed and it's necessary, I'd assume that no one was hurt during this. I hope that's the case, that no one was injured. Whatever pickle that Britney Spears had gotten herself into, I feel like there's better ways of addressing whatever problems that she allegedly has. I'm not saying that she has problems. Hypothetically, if there is something that she has that is necessary to address, then surely I'd assume there should be an expert on a respective field or subject that could help her with that. That's at least my perspective, my take. Otherwise, not that I'm defending Britney Spears on anything and everything. It is worth knowing that a couple of years ago she just got herself out of this conservatorship under her father, so of course Britney Spears is over the moon hearing that she's no longer under the conservatorship of her father, and she's able to go out, enjoy the world, meet her sons, and just do what she wants to do in life. It'd be a shame if Britney Spears eventually went back into that route again. Surely I doubt that's going to happen. And I know Britney Spears knows better, and she is aware of the actions she has made and what she's got herself into. It is important that we allow people to do what they do and pay the price of what their actions are, as experience is a better teacher than any knowledge you could ever obtain. Now, I'm not sure if anyone said that, but that is something I would say, that's for sure. Experience is a better teacher than any knowledge you could ever obtain. It actually sounds quite good, and it is true. It doesn't matter how much you know on any subject, topic, or whatever, if you don't experience it, then what you are learning from the knowledge you have isn't going to be enough to actually make a change of difference, or a difference in changes of whatever it is you're doing in life. Astronomers believe they've detected an atmosphere around a tiny icy world beyond Pluto. In a study appearing Monday in Nature Astronomy, observational astronomer Ko Arimatsu of the National Astronomical Observatory of Japan reported detecting a thin atmosphere around the Kuiper Belt object, located more than 3.4 billion miles away. The 470-kilometer-wide body is the smallest object yet found with a global atmosphere, challenging conventional views that atmospheres are limited to large planets and moons. Arimatsu and colleagues tracked the object using telescopes in Japan, observing a distant star's light fade gradually over about 1.5 seconds, indicating starlight refraction by a tenuous atmosphere. If the atmosphere persists or varies seasonally, it may point to ongoing gas supply from ice volcanoes. Alternatively, the gas could stem from a recent impact by an icy body, Arimatsu noted. Future observations by NASA's Webb Space Telescope will verify the atmosphere's composition. The implications are profound if verified, said Southwest Research Institute's Alan Stern, lead scientist behind NASA's New Horizons missions. Wow. So, what I'm hearing is there could be a planet that has the chance to sustain biological microorganismal life. And if that is the case, that there is other planets that could sustain life of any kind, like organisms, biographical somethings, and other microorganisms, I'm not sure other names for it, that'd be pretty cool. One thing that's worth noting is about how do we leave Earth? How do we escape our stratosphere? Enter the vast emptiness of space, beyond the moon, beyond Mars. What is there? What are we gonna do? Well, yes, we know the Artemis 2 and Artemis 3 is underway. Artemis 3. When is it? At what point are we going to see any space tourism being put in place? I remember asking my podcast guests years ago about, would you ever want to try space tourism? And of course, I get a mixed answer of, yes, I would like to go. I would love to try space tourism. And then others are like, no, no, I don't want to. Mainly because, down to the fact that, why would we leave our planet if the planet we're on is a mess? And that's a good point. I'm not sure exactly what guest who said that. Whoever they are, that's a very good point. So yeah, uh, only time will tell if there's any progress, if there's any more progress in regards to leaving our atmosphere, space tourism, and habilitating new planets. Maybe set up new colonies, perhaps. And now I'm starting to question. Likewise with colonialism in the 20th century, the British Empire, the Portuguese, the French, and Spaniards. How is colonialism going to work today in outer space? Is there going to be a time frame for transitions of power? Would there have to be basic necessities to be set up before a particular colony becomes or given or it is granted autonomous rule to make their own laws, similar to Greenland and Svalbard under the Danish kingdom? And if autonomous rule is given to these colonies by either the US, the European Space Agency, China, India, whoever, what happens to those space colonies that now exceeded their autonomy beyond just being under a sovereign nation, and then those space colonies become their own sovereign nation with their own currency, their own laws, their own public transit system, and other diplomatic ties are made amongst them? I'd assume there has to be a universal equivalent of the United Nations that needs to be put in place to ensure that whatever these space colonies that become sovereign nations do, that whatever's done on Earth has to be implemented amongst intergalactical universal nations and on other planets. I'm very excited for stuff like this. However, I shouldn't get my hopes too high in case we find out that we are trapped in the firmaments, and the only way to discover new lands is we go beyond the ice wall, past Antarctica, which apparently is guarded by not just security personnel, but also scientists that are just there for research purposes. If you ask me, it's a very convenient reason to say that there's no point going to Antarctica or the Arctic Circle because it's just scientific research being done there. What's even the point, man? Anyway, that's just me. And who knows? Life goes on, who knows? So on and so forth. And that is it for the episode.